Alright guys, it's time for an update on our 1980 Pontiac Sunbird build. We are attempting to build the fastest car that we can for a $10,000 budget. And this is sort of our fan entry into the Cleetus McFarland Cheap Car Challenge. If you guys are unfamiliar with this event, Cleetus and his crew members have bought a couple of cars and are going to compete with those cars at Six Summer in about a month. They are limiting themselves to a $10,000 budget, and we saw how much fun they were having at Sick Week a couple months ago, and we decided that we wanted to participate in our own way. And we're not new to the budget racing game. This car originally was built to compete in the $2,000 Grassroots Motorsports Challenge, and it has won the drag racing portion of that event 5 times. We figured if we quintupled our budget, we should be able to build something quite a bit faster, but we decided to handicap ourselves a bit and install our staple for the channel, a turbocharged Vortec 4200. In the most recent episode, you saw that we got done with most of the heavy fab work, including mounting the engine, building the turbo kit, installing our larger radiator, and our burn down garage Silverado fan kit. And today we are going to start finalizing and doing the final installation of everything on the car. For the engine, we decided to go with a 2005 Vortec 4200 that we picked up off of Facebook Marketplace for $200. I put Mom and Dad to work tearing the engine down, as the plan is to put Molnar rods and Weisco forged pistons into the engine, along with installing a ported 06 and later Gen 2 head. Now, if you guys watched our most recent videos, you heard me talk about the sort of Achilles heel to the Vortec 4200 being that the cylinder sleeves will sometimes crack and cause the cylinder to get full of water and hydraulic the cylinder. We have only seen this in one instance out of many, many engine teardowns, and unfortunately that instance hurt quite a bit. Now, the problem with a crack in the cylinder bore is often it is hard to see the crack. Therefore, we decided to use this product called Zyglow. It is a spray-on sort of magnafluxing type material that will allow you to shine a black light over the material that you want to check for cracks, and it will make the crack show up very defined so that it is easy to spot. Now, another no-brainer upgrade to these Vortec 4200s is to upgrade to a 360-degree thrust. These engines only came with a thrust surface on the top side bearing, so the hot ticket is to take 2 top side bearings, install one in the block and one on the cap, and then you have yourself a 360-degree thrust.
Okay, what's the torque spec, Mom?
Tighten studs number 1 through 10 to 25 foot-pounds.
Well, I got 14 studs. What do I do?
Oh. They have different foot-pounds.
Yeah, that doesn't apply to us. Don't you
Okay,
know
so
nothing.
75.
This
like
isn't a
I told-
BMW.
I told you in the first place it's 75.
Yeah, but it's not a BMW. I mean, look at the top. Okay.
Says Mini Cooper.
Yeah, Mini Cooper. This isn't a Mini Cooper engine.
Application BMW 1.6 liter Mini Cooper.
That's weird. Yeah, it says it's for a cylinder head, too. These are main caps.
Well, you gave me the wrong paper.
Oh, no. What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Can't believe everything you read on the internet. Right, Mama?
Or on the instruction manual.
Alright, let's check the thrust clearance.
How do you do that?
I don't know. You were supposed to figure that out.
Oh, wait, step.
Okay, see this? This is how you check your thrust clearance. You see this dial?
It's at 0.
It's at 0. And then you push it the other way. Ready? Blink. What does this say?
Like 7.
Yeah, just below 7. That's perfect.
Oh, okay.
I normally shoot for 7, but if it's like 5 to 10 is good enough. But every time I've done this, it's come out to 7.
Oh, is that all you do?
Yep, that's it. We're done.
Okay, we're done?
Mm-hmm. had to do.
You press the
If it's
easy
too
button.
loose, you know what happens? The engine
Gotta
doesn't make
do
any
it
oil pressure. It
all
burns up.
over again.
Next, it was time to get the rings all gapped up. We decided to go with 30 thousandths of an inch on both top and bottom ring. We struggled to get the little C-clips into the pistons a little bit. It was a very difficult fit, which I guess is not a bad thing. I'd rather them not come out while the engine is running, because, you know, that would be bad news. After that, we started to install pistons. Now, we don't have access to a multi-million-dollar machine shop for our use free of charge. Achoo! Sorry, had to sneeze. So we had to do it the old-fashioned way. And by the old-fashioned way, I mean close your eyes and just put the engine together, because it'll be fine. So one by one, we installed all 6 piston and rod assemblies. And next it was time to put our Snyder Performance ported Gen 2 cylinder head onto the engine. Now that we had the engine finalized, it was time to start getting ready to install this thing into the car. But we had one of the more challenging parts of this build to finish up first, and that was the oil pan. All right, we just got done modifying the oil pan. This actually started its life out as a Stutz pan. We've cut and modified it very, very significantly. You can see that we've added the pocket here in order to make clearance for the pickup tube. We've also added the turbo drain here, and then we've also added some provisions so that we can run a external oil cooler. We've also taken the original sump and we have cut it off and made a kick-out style sump. This is in an effort to get more ground clearance while maintaining the same oil capacity. The last modification, or addition, I guess you could say, is we added this little bung right here. This will be for our dipstick tube. It will use the same Canton style dipstick tube that we used on my Trailblazer so that we can check our oil level. Also, we've added these little notches here and here because the steering on the car, when the wheels are at full lock, this part and this part get a little bit close to where the oil pan is, and we basically had to add these notches here so that it would have clearance. And the last thing is we have a removable baffle tray here that my dad just got done with. That is something that is not on the Stutz pan. He normally welds the baffle tray in. We like to make it removable so that if you need to get down in here and clean out maybe some blown up engine parts, it is possible to do that. We're gonna get this thing bolted onto the engine and get it installed in the car. Alright guys, as you can see, we've gotten a lot of the wiring done in the engine bay, but we're going to get into that more in depth in the next video. What I actually want to show you today is we are going to be running an oil cooler on this car. Now, it is shoved in behind the grill here, and the idea is to get it as much airflow as possible. And with our drag and drive cars with these Vortec 4200s, we have seen issues with oil temperature. Now, typically with an oil cooler, people will put a sandwich plate onto their oil filter and they will run oil from the discharge of the pump to your cooler, and then it will run back to that sandwich plate. And this creates quite a bit of restriction in your oil system. Typically, you have to run really heavy lines up to this oil cooler, and that oil cooler just makes the pump have to work a little bit harder and usually results in a loss in oil pressure by the time it gets back to the engine. So any oil pressure that you would gain from getting your oil temperature into a more favorable region, you will lose because of the restriction of the oil cooler. Now, the way that we are going to do it on this car is a little bit different. We've actually added bungs onto the side of the oil pan that I mentioned earlier, and we are going to use an oil scavenge pump, which is down in that area, and we will be pumping oil with an electric pump through the oil cooler and returning it to the engine. That way we get the best of both worlds. Instead of taxing our oil pump, which is being driven by the engine and resulting in a lower oil pressure being fed to the engine, we have an electric pump which will do all of that work, and we can get our oil temps down and not lose any oil flow that will keep our engine alive. All right guys, so it's time to start the injector decapping process. This is the injector tester that I got for Christmas this year. And basically how it works is you set the thing up with a test mode. Basically you can choose between one of these options here, and you hit the start button. It will pressurize the fuel and then start to pulse the injectors. These have been sitting in a junk pile for quite a few years, and I think this is something that's really neat about this injector tester is that it also comes with an ultrasonic cleaner. Basically, we will put a bath of some mineral spirits right there into this vessel right here, and then it will pulse the injectors and clean them with ultrasonic. So first off, I wanted to start off by starting this test and showing you that a few of these injectors don't actually fire. So let's hit the start button. We can see it has pressurized the system with mineral spirits, and if we go down, you'll notice that the first two injectors are firing, but the second two, they're doing a whole lot of nothing. So we're going to stick these into the ultrasonic cleaner, and we're going to see if we can get these things to free up and, be able to work with these. And it's done. I'm not sure if you can really see how brown that liquid is, but that was like perfectly clear when we started. So let's get them loaded up and see if we fixed the two injectors that were giving us trouble. All right, let's give it a test. Hey, looks like we freed them up. So now we're gonna run this thing through a couple tests, and we're gonna take some notes on what they do, and then we will decap them and see how much flow we pick up. Now this injector flow bench doesn't really have like a static flow test where it just opens the injector for a certain period of time and allows you to see how much it flows for a given duration. So I'm just going to do probably 3 of them for each injector, and then that is how I am going to basically pair up the injectors and try to get a close batch of 12 injectors to put onto the Sunbird. So I'm going to do test number 2, which is sort of like an idling test, test number 3, which is a medium speed test, and test number 4, which is a high speed test. Alright guys, we're going to start decapping these injectors. I'm not going to go super in depth with this, but I'm going to give you sort of a brief overview of what we're doing. Basically, we are going to take this little black cap off of the top of the injector, and then it will look like this. And we will use the belt sander here, and we will squeeze the trigger and rotate the thing until the cap comes off. So let's get to work. I tried the drill method there, but I kept launching the thing off the sander and getting dirt down in here. I probably should clean up my workbench, but you know, who wants to do that? But here is what the injector will look like when it's done. If you want a more in-depth video on this, I'm going to link the Sloppy Mechanics video up here in the corner, and he goes much more into detail on how this process works, so go check that out if you're more interested. But as you can see here, the pintle has been exposed, and that will allow it to flow quite a bit more, because instead of having to flow through a bunch of tiny holes right here, we're able to flow through one big one, and should get us where we need to go. And here is what we ended up with. The unmodified injector is marked by the first number, and then the decapped injector is marked by the number after the slash mark. So as you can see, each of our injectors roughly doubled in flow. And while this is not the close to triple that I saw with a lot of others who have done this to these injectors, I think it will still get us pretty close to where we want to go. After this, I plugged the flow results into Claude AI. It's kind of like ChatGPT, and I asked it if it would sort the injectors into the closest pairing, so that we would have a pair of injectors that would be as close to one another for every cylinder. And here's what it came up with. I was able to use these results and plug them into the engine, and you can see that our highest flowing cylinder is 190 cc's and our lowest is 187, and the others are very close in pairing. This amount of variance is not going to be anything noticeable, and I just thought this was a neat use of AI. At this point in the video, you probably have already noticed the color of the valve cover, and that brings me to we've come up with a name for the car. We are going to call this thing the Sunbird Sprint. Now, if you guys are familiar with the history of GM vehicles, Pontiac already had an overhead cam inline six, and they put it into their Pontiac Firebird, and they gave it the tagline of Sprint. Therefore, I thought it would be cool to paint the valve cover that same shade of bluish green and do sort of an homage to the original that came before it. Now, hopefully this overhead cam inline six is a little bit more sporty than the original. Gotta say a big thanks to the guys over at Bullseye Power for helping with a little bit of motivation there. But with that, I want to introduce you to our new project, Sprint. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. We have less than a month to get this thing ready for 6 summer, so wish us luck. In the next video, this car will be running and possibly on the dyno or the racetrack, depending on how much time we have. So make sure that you look forward to that. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
That should be it right there.
Hello?
Yeah, it's recording now.
Okay, well, I think we figured it out. How to record on your camera. Okay, bye.
Good gravy, the things we gotta do for this kid.
Good grief.
People can look at that and go, his parents are good, you retarded.
What did you put? Here, maybe this one. Yes, that's it. Take 1. Well, actually, take 2.
You're a goofball.